Hello and welcome to another edition of Scan's Career Corner, co-sponsored by the Greater Long Branch Chamber of Commerce. Today we're going to have a great guest, Paul Sgro. You are going to be a great guest, right, Paul?
Yes, I will.
He's from Lee's Garage. He's going to tell us all about his collision place, his auto body place. Paul, welcome.
Thank you.
How did you get into this? Probably your father got you into this.
Well, it started a very long time ago. I was about 4 years old, loved working on cars in the garage, and had a little tractor I used to work on and play around with. And then from that point, it just started to get in your system. So the cars were always a part of it. As a boy, liking to work on things and build things, I had a passion for it. And I continued to grow with it and progress. And I just loved being there. There were times in the summertime when I was young being 12 to 15 years old, that I'd be at the shop rather than the beach because I just loved being around automobiles.
So what did you do when you were 12 to 15?
Well, I worked around the shop. I helped sweep up, clean up, get tools, and help guys working on cars, and painted my first car when I was 15 years old.
Nice. Not Earl Scheib. This was yours.
No.
If everybody remembers Earl Scheib back in the day, $29.95.
Yeah.
All the colors as long as it's black.
That's right. That's right.
It's like Cuba needs those guys. You know?
That's right. But it's been a passion in my life, for everything I've been doing. I just love what I do, working on cars and putting smiles on people's faces, turning that negative into a positive.
How does well, I know there are some vocational schools out there that do teach body shop or body work, and that's predominantly what you do, right? Collision
Correct.
specialist?
Collision specialist,
okay. Yes. But that's a bit of an art unto itself. I mean, tell the people, what do you do?
Well, I tell you, since I took the business over from my dad back in 1981, it's grown a lot. We're now a factory authorized repair shop for Mercedes-Benz, Porsche.
How do you do that?
Well, we go to the dealerships. We work with the dealers hand in hand. We work with the manufacturer, getting trained by the manufacturer to enable us to fix these cars back to new again. So it's pretty involved. But being certified through all these different manufacturers, Mercedes, Porsche, Audi, Land Rover, Jaguar, Nissan, Ford, it gives us the opportunity to really help the customer out. By doing that, it helps the technicians. We send them to training all the time. You could have no training in our industry at all and come aboard and working with us or other companies like ourselves that will give you that training path, that career path where you have to go.
And how many people, when they are taking their car out, say, I didn't even know that it's like it was when I bought it?
Well, our goal is 100% of the time, so that's what we work on.
100% of the time,
they're satisfied.
Like that.
That's right. They're happy.
So where do you get your referrals? Do you do insurance work as well?
We do insurance work for insurance companies, but it's basically a customer referral and from the manufacturer. If you have an accident with a car that we're certified on, you'll be directed to go to us because we're factory trained by the manufacturer's guidelines on how to restore that car back to a safe condition again.
Without getting yourself in trouble, since from time to time people in my business have to deal with people who write up what's wrong with the car after a collision, there must be times when the insurance company says, well, I think they only need this, and you say, well, I think it's going to be a little bit more than this, after you start opening up the can of worms.
It's like anything else, we have to diagnose. Diagnostic work has to be done on the vehicle beforehand. Car comes apart, we take a look at it, find additional damages. In turn, we contact the insurance carrier. They'll come back out to us. We'll validate all the components that are damaged, and we can continue on.
Especially under the body stuff, I would imagine.
Correct.
When frames get bent and They say, well, I don't think there's a frame bend, and all of a sudden tires get worn because they...
Well, Len, I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but a lot of cars are going to aluminum, magnesium, and carbon fiber. These vehicles are very technical to repair. There's a lot of real engineering that's involved in it, and we have to go back and duplicate that type of repair. So it's not very easy to do.
It's not like the old days where they just stretch it out and move it out.
No. You need special equipment that we have to have on hand on a continuous basis. This equipment is not something that is readily available to the general public or any businesses. You have to be exclusive from the manufacturer.
So when John Hamm on the radio talks about the Mercedes and this, every time there's something new, you guys have to get up and figure out how you do this.
We go to training every 6 months for welding for Mercedes-Benz. We have to be certified in their welding department how to re-weld these cars back together. Same with Audi and Porsche and other manufacturers.
Without revealing any secrets, is that on your dime or their dime?
Well, whose dime do you think it's on?
Any way they could get it off to you.
That's right. Yeah, it's a big investment for us. The equipment that we invested in and the training is ongoing. So there's a big investment for us to go ahead and do this for our clients to ensure that the vehicles are repaired properly and safe again.
With these new exotic compounds that you're talking about, what kind of equipment do you have to get?
There's special frame equipment. We have probably 4 different welders that we have to have that is approved by the manufacturer to make sure the weld is exactly duplicated from the manufacturer, so it's the same strength. Rivet guns, there are special rivet guns that we have to re-rivet some of the bonding panels on a vehicle that is specifically for that manufacturer with enough pounds to make sure that rivet's in there with pressure.
And given the variety of the way collisions occur, you can't possibly have the parts for all these things.
Now, parts are, we work hand in hand with our local dealers that we are sponsored through, and they're able to get our parts very quickly.
So that means you could say,
Yeah.
when am I going to get my car back? Is it yesterday or this afternoon?
Well, yeah, exactly. But the parts are pretty much 72 hours. We can have our parts delivered to
A lot
us.
of those collisions, they probably have loaners from the insurance company.
That's
most
correct.
of them. So
That's
it's not without transportation.
That's correct.
So all these people that have to have these skills through all the training, that now you obviously would need at least a high school education if you're going to do something of the scale of what you're doing. You have
That's
to have
correct.
something. You also have to have, for example, in your particular case, people skills, because everybody's going to moan about when they get their car back and how does it drive, and they haven't driven it in maybe 2 weeks because it was a major collision. They say it doesn't feel right. Well, because you were driving a loaner for 2 weeks.
Right, right.
All those small crazy things. But it must be rewarding in many ways. I mean, what you're talking about it's a skill, but it's an art. Well, I
Yes.
said it before. I mean, getting the colors right and buffing it out and
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, the painting is a big thing today. We use waterborne paints. We have computers that will actually match the pigments of your vehicle and your car, so we give a guaranteed color match on your vehicle. The technicians, I would tell you that anybody getting involved in this industry, it's about a passion. It's what you want to do in life. And if you really love what you do and you really want to do it, guess what? That's 98% of what it is.
But you've seen the industry change dramatically.
Yes. Oh, yes.
You have to have ventilation, all the EPA things, the DEP things that come along, your disposal of what you have.
Yes.
You just talked about waterborne paints. I mean, when you first did it, they were all oil, weren't they?
Well,
And
there
the
was
drying techniques were different too?
everything was a lot different years ago, and we have spray booths now that we can change the air every 4 to 6 minutes. The air changes completely through. The bake temperature goes from 0 to 150 degrees in less than 3 minutes.
I wouldn't want to walk through that.
Yeah, it's nice in the wintertime though.
It cuts down on your heating bills,
Yeah.
I bet, but it must be expensive just to run it.
But with the new paints today, that we have to have these type of equipment so that the proper ventilation enables the paint to cure faster. In turn, gives it a better finish, and it's more of a guarantee at that point.
So would you recommend, well, I mean, you've got your own niche, and there aren't probably too many around here that have yours, but you would recommend this to somebody who say may even want to, I guess you have to be physically able enough to do the things that they're doing. You can't have somebody who's just walked out of the hospital, meaning you have to have some muscular fitness, some brains, I mean.
Well, I tell you, you really have to really go back to that passion of what you want to do, because you can do it, anything, if you really want to do it. We have different departments in our facility that we need people who have a lot of electronic experience. People who have some type of computer experience. We have people who can just take things apart, put things back together.
Because you have to rewire.
Correct. We have the
reline.
computers, we have to reprogram things. There's a lot of paperwork that we use all our computers and OE procedures, which the manufacturer tells us how to fix the car based on their
How much
documentation.
disassembly you have to do to before
Exactly.
you reassemble?
So there's a lot involved today in repairing a car. It's not as it was, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. There's a lot going on today. So that,
But it's a lot safer too.
Yes.
I mean, the cars that are coming out today with the visuals on top, around, circular, backup, front work, all the other things that are going on your console.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
efficiency ratings, for
Yes.
example, but safety, I think, is really,
That's
really
that's the big part. And for us, repairing that car and making it safe again is the most important thing in what we do. That's why these manufacturers are working with us and we're working with them to make sure we follow those directions, exactly what we need to do. So when that customer gets back in that car again, it's safe.
And so when you test the car out on the GPS, you're not in Maryland, but you're actually
Yeah.
on Oceanport on Broadway
Exactly.
in
Exactly.
West Long Branch.
Ron, you bring up a point before about the cars today being built. They're built by computers and designed by computers, so we have to make sure that everything is done correctly with all the safety and airbags and seatbelts. It's very, very important today.
Yeah, and you know, when I go back to my Boy Scout days, which was not that long ago, and going to the GM plant over in Linden, or when my brother got married, we saw the Ford plant out in Michigan in 1968. Way different.
Yes.
Way different than it is today.
Yes, it is.
It's now no longer people, but robots.
Yeah.
Is essentially it. But my nephew in Michigan does design work, and his wife, what does she do? She has to look at what everybody designs to make sure all these things get together instead of manufacturing two parts that don't get together. But you're the ones that have to make those two parts get together.
Right.
So, Paul, you know, you're really enmeshed in your job, your business, but you also do a lot of other things for the community. And you want to tell us what you really like? And I'm not just talking about the wine stuff with that your father-in-law does, which is also very good. Maybe one of these days we'll have him on the show.
Well, you know, I love helping people. And I love getting involved, and it's not uncommon for me to help out our local communities and working with our local churches and doing things to help people. We all need help. And, you know, if someone raises their hand, I like to be the guy there to help out when we can. You're all given a purpose in life, and I hope my purpose is to make your car safe again, put you on the road, and the same token, helping you out if you need help.
Well, and you got a nice family too. Tell us a little bit about that, Paul.
Well, I have a beautiful wife and two beautiful girls.
Well, I
and,
know that.
you know,
What ages those girls?
18 and 16.
Oh,
Yeah.
the tough parts of the
Oh,
years.
yeah. Gray hair starting to come in.
Yeah, and not on your wife though. But I do want to mention something because as a member of the community, you see Lee's Garage on a lot of different things. And many, many years ago, before I met Paul, we both, this is a softball shirt, and on the back of it is Lee's Garage.
Yes.
And even though my knees aren't great, and they gave me the number of my old house number, but those guys, they're tough softball. I'll tell you,
Yeah.
they're serious. It's
Yeah.
not like my old days where someone can run for you up to first base.
Yeah.
And, there's not that. But I saved that, and it brought back some memories, and also thinks about that. Any business like yours has to get back to the community, and
Yes.
does.
Yes.
And that's the only way you get anything back.
It's so true. You know, it's not about us, it's about everyone else and serving each other. And, giving back to your local community, giving back to your local churches or whatever you do, it's just giving back, because that's where the gratification comes in. It comes from within here.
And you were, and how often do you have to fly to these different places? Every so many months?
Well, I just got back from Detroit yesterday. I was in Michigan at the GM plant. I'm part of I'm actually a board member on the SCRS, which is the Society of Collision Repair Specialists. And we met out there and we talked about different strategies and how the repair industry is going and fixing cars.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you for watching Career Corner.
Thank you.
Take it from me. Living with a chronic disease is no easy task, but I learned to better manage my health condition, and you can too. Take Control of Your Health is the chronic disease self-management program created by Stanford University. This fun, innovative course is now offered to all county residents. Diabetes, arthritis, heart disease, cancer. Take Control of Your Health gives proven strategies to manage these conditions and reclaim your life. See how nutrition, exercise, and various mind techniques can help you overcome depression, increase energy, and manage pain. You'll not only get this book when you participate, you'll also receive the guidance and support of others living with a chronic illness, just like you. Take control of your health in 6 short sessions.
Call the number on your screen to register or get further information at scannj.com. Brought to you by SCAN, Social Community Activities Network, with funding made available by the Monmouth County Office on Aging.
Hello and welcome to another Scan Career Corner segment. You recently had a fellow by the name of John Majeski talk about a franchise that he's into called Sgro, and Sgro really serving the public. And I have today a guest, her name is Nicole Tomlin, who is a bit of an expert on franchises and franchise laws. So anybody who's interested in getting involved with the franchise may want to listen to some of the ins and outs of franchises. Welcome, Nicole. How are you today?
I am very well, thank you, Len. How are you?
Good. What is a franchise?
So a franchise is a business model combined with a trade name or mark and a payment. We think of franchises and we think of what the classic examples are, and we think about a food service business or a product or service that's being sold. So when we think of franchises, one of the first things that might come to mind is a restaurant like a McDonald's or a Sgro, like what was on with you a little bit ago. Now, when we are talking about a franchise, it is the combination of the trade name or mark, the business model, and the fee that come together and create the franchise model.
When I was growing up, there weren't too many McDonald's or Burger Kings or Friendlies. Well, Friendlies I don't believe is a franchise. That's wholly owned, right, for the most part. But there were auto franchises.
Yes, there were.
Ford,
GM.
Chevrolet, Buick, Cadillac. They were all franchises. They all ran differently, right?
Yes, they are. And there's actually two versions of franchise law in this country. We have something called the Federal Trade Commission Rule on Franchising, and then we have something called the Auto Dealers Act. And they are two separate and distinct franchise regulation schemes and laws.
The one with the auto dealers, how far back does that go?
Oh my goodness, that goes back until the 1970s, right around the same time that the Federal Trade Commission created federal law.
And that was a result of certain things that were having problems with the dealers and the manufacturers or the grantors of the franchises. And when you go around the country and you see at one point a lot of Exxon gas stations, and now no more Exxon gas stations. Now you see Raceway, and now you see Speedway, and now you see Lukoil, and all these. These are all changes, I guess, in franchise operations, liability, and operations?
So some of that is correct. The gas station franchise model falls into the traditional franchise model, not the Automobile Dealers Act. So gas station franchises are something that tend to be offered the exact same way any other franchise is offered. So you and I would meet, and you would say, Nicole, I'm interested in selling you an ExxonMobil franchise. And I'd say, okay, may I see the franchise disclosure document, please?
Do you think most people ask that?
Actually, most people do ask it, and
Okay.
if they don't, the franchisor follows up and offers it, because it is illegal in this country to offer a franchise where the purchase price is less than $1 million without providing a disclosure document.
So you're saying there are a lot of franchises that cost over $1 million?
There are many.
Some of those viewers might be a little rich for you on that. But let's talk about the under $1 million franchises. Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So you would come and you would say, here you go, Nicole, here is your franchise disclosure document. And I would take it.
And you go to your lawyer and say, what does this mean?
Almost exactly. So the Federal Trade Commission rule on franchising is actually a rule that relates to disclosure. It tells you what goes in the big book. And when I say big book, I mean big book. They're somewhere between 100 and 400 pages, depending on what company you're looking at. And you page through the book and you find information about the company history, about who the officers and directors are. You find out if there's any litigation or bankruptcy history for the company. So for the automobile dealers, you'd see a bankruptcy disclosure. Also for some of the restaurant companies, they've gone through that recently. Then you'd go a little bit further and you'd see an estimated initial investment. And it's a nice chart. It's usually about 2 pages, and it tells you all the different things that you can expect to spend money on.
In your experience, what are the less expensive franchises and what are the more expensive franchises?
So-
For a viewer who says, I have $25,000, I want to be an entrepreneur, I don't know what, but what can I buy for $25,000 on a franchise or $45,000?
You can buy a lot. So there is.
Yeah, I know. There's one on the corner. Oh, you're talking about a lot of franchise stuff.
You can buy a wide range. So some of the less expensive franchises are called fractional franchises or at-home franchises. So you can buy something where you might be signing up with a Vanguard cleaning services and you are getting a certain number of accounts and you or your employees are going to go and clean those accounts and they guarantee you a set amount of income. You can also do something like a Jenny King or a Jenny Pro, or you can sign up for a model where you sell a small number of goods from your home. Within that price range,
Is that the old Tupperware ones, for example?
Tupperware is a multi-level marketing scheme, which is similar to franchising, but different disclosure
I see.
requirements. The book's only about 10 pages instead of several hundred.
We have tops, we have bottoms, we have rounds, and we have squares. No. Been to a couple of those many years ago. Anyway, so the at-home stuff is also similar to a franchise, is what you're saying?
Yes, and an example of something like that would be a children's party franchise, for example, or something like a Fun Bus has a very low initial investment, and that's actually a company that was founded right here in Monmouth County using converted school buses to drive to children's schools and birthday parties, and then they'd have all the activities set up inside the bus. It's a neat little concept.
And I remember, ding dong, Avon's calling. And they
Another
used to have all
multi-level
those-
marketing scheme.
Another multi. So the more you have, the better it is. And recently, it means when the ones who go through it, they're the ones that get all the money. And I think recently, as there was a lot of deregulation in the gas and oil industry or electrical industry, those two were multi-level. They say if you get 5 people to do the hawking and those 5 get another 5 each, that's now you're up to 25, and all you have to do is sit back and collect your royalties, right?
To a degree, there's been a lot more regulation of that industry in the last 10 years. So there was a new multi-level marketing rule that came onto the scene in about 2010, and I'm not quite as familiar with that area.
But Nicole, there's 2 types of protection now. You have the purchaser of the franchise, and then you have the consumer who may be buying a product that the franchisee doesn't even realize may be dirt instead of, nice glitter.
And that is part of the reason why it is so important to do your homework on what you are buying, whether you're interested in a franchise, for example, a Subway, or a multi-level marketing scheme like an Avon or a Mary Kay. So it's very important to have a good idea of what whether you're the multi-level marketing seller or the franchisee, the person who's offering and selling the goods or services backed by the franchisor's trade name and mark, are offering to the public.
Now, in our guest from ServPro, he went through a bit of training. That's all part of what you're paying for on your franchise fees. And where does the owner of the franchise shell get their money?
The owner of the franchise company?
Yes, not the individual store owner or operator. I'm talking about the national level.
So that is a question that has multiple parts to the answer. The first piece of it is typically a royalty. A royalty is usually either a percentage or a flat fee, sometimes the greater of the two. So say, for instance, you were to sign a franchise agreement with Retro Fitness. You would pay them 6% of your gross sales or $500 a month, whichever is greater, in a royalty fee.
So if you had low sales, you're still stuck with 500.
still
If you
have
have
to
great
pay
sales, you're happy to send that 6% maybe. But isn't the quid pro quo advertising,
So
national
that's-
advertising, and then the referrals that you talked about?
Not quite. So the next piece is an advertising fee, and most of the major franchise brands have a mandatory contribution to what they call an advertising fund, and they either call it an RAF, a regional advertising fund, or a national advertising fund.
It's really, as you're going through all this, reminds me of someone going into a major shopping mall and having all these CAM charges, which basically is for marketing, and then you get a percentage of the revenue, you got all this and this and this. So they get you one way or the other.
They do. Now, the next piece of it is a lot of franchise systems have what we call captive supply chains. So what the franchisee doesn't realize is that they may have to buy all of the products that they are selling to the end consumer from a captive reseller.
Now, that reminds me of when I was in high school, I used to deliver for Don't Cook Tonight, call Chicken Delight, and I used to deliver. And you had to have all the buckets, all the lids, the equipment that cooked the stuff, the ovens, and then to a point even where you had to buy your ribs, chicken, shrimp, fish, and French fries, and all that other stuff. That's what you're talking about.
That is what we call captive supply chain. Those are the three areas that most franchise companies use to make their money.
And the hits just keep on coming. Well, I guess, successful franchise operators are happy. They can do very, very well. It's just a question of finding what you may like as a product, or maybe not like is the right expression, but what you think you can sell.
That is a big component. So there's an analysis that needs to go on as for you, the potential franchisee. And one of the things you need to think about is, can I afford to buy this concept? Because it doesn't matter how wonderful the concept is, if you can't afford to meet what's called the estimated initial investment, the item 7 disclosure that tells you how much it's going to cost you just to open your doors on day one.
And do a lot of the national people help you find locations for it? In other words, recently, not that long ago, someone had a Five Guys franchise, and he was limited to X number of licenses. But at one point he says, no, I'm going to stop at 4. I want to give this up. But finding a location may be very, very difficult.
So Five Guys is a perfect example of that. Dunkin' is another very good example.
You're talking about the donuts or the coffee?
Dunkin' Donuts,
Okay.
which primarily sells coffee and makes most of its revenue off of the coffee sales. So both of those companies offer what we call area development agreements. They don't really sell one franchise. They sell a multi-unit pack, whether it's 3 or 5 or 7, depending on the location.
So in a particular area, one person may be owning those 5 Dunkin' Donuts. Is what you're
Absolutely.
saying. Okay.
Now, when it comes to finding the location, Dunkin' and Five Guys are 2 companies where you have to go out and look for the location yourself, and then they will approve it.
And so you have to go through planning, zoning, but they do the architecture cookie cutter. They're saying if you're going to do it?
Not quite. They give you a set of sample plans
I see.
and an approved architect for Dunkin'. To be honest with you, I don't know exactly what Five Guys does, but I believe it's similar.
Yeah, you got to know where to flip the burgers, and where to put the buns, where you do the shakes, and where you do the rolls. That could be quite challenging, I think, overall.
Can be very challenging.
So the trade-offs, it can be very, very challenging. On the other hand, if you're successful, you're going to make money, I guess, with just about any other business. And, it's interesting because you just called to mind Blockbuster Video. Now, Blockbuster was around, VHS, DVDs start coming in, streaming comes in, and next thing you know, your Blockbuster franchise is as old as that VHS tape that no one has a machine to play on. Although vinyl's coming back, people can do some listening on new vinyl machines. But I guess that's all the part of the risk of being in business, and also having some counselors say to them, you got to think of this, you got to think of that, and take it from there. Nicole, just briefly, tell us about what you like to do with your one particular pet.
I have a Savannah cat. His name is Dee, and he goes to nursing homes with me as part of the Monmouth County SPCA's pet therapy program. We like to go and visit people and hopefully make their day a little bit better.
And it makes your day go a little bit better when you see the smiles on some of these people?
It does. And honestly, he is so calm and so happy when he's there.
And
he
both
enjoys
you
it
and the
too.
cat had to have training for that.
Oh, absolutely.
And not too many of you around, especially with
No,
cats, right?
there are very few cats in the SPCA's pet therapy program. There are a lot of dogs, and it always makes me laugh because some of the dogs like Dee and some of the dogs lay their ears back and want to back away.
Thank you, and thank you for watching Scan tonight.